And welcome to the October 3rd, 2023 meeting of the Fitchburg City Council. I now call this meeting to order. Please be advised that FATV is conducting audio and video recording of this meeting for public broadcast, and I ask that anyone else in the audience who is recording this meeting to please identify themselves for the record now by standing and stating their name and city of residence. Seeing none, at this time, I ask that all electronic devices be placed into silent mode. And then I will lead us in the salute to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
President Zarella.
Here.
Councilor Boschman.
Here remotely.
Councilor Kuchar.
Here.
Councilor Cragen. Here. Councilor Cruz.
Here.
Councilor Di Natale.
Here.
Councilor Fleming.
Here.
Councilor Green.
Here.
Councilor Schultz.
Here remotely.
Councilor Squalia.
Present.
And Councilor Van Hassinger.
Here.
We have 11 members present.
Thank you very much. Oh, yes. All right. We have no one logged in remotely for public forum. If there is anyone in the audience wishing to speak on any item on the agenda, please approach the center podium, identify yourself by name and city of residence, and the agenda item on which you wish to speak, and then you may address the council for not more than 2 minutes on that topic.
Hi, Liz Murphy, Executive Director of Community Development and Planning for the City of Fitchburg. I just wanted to speak in support of item 22623. That's the request to appropriate $125,000, an earmark from the state for the purpose of improving roadway, flooding concerns, and underground infrastructure and user safety in the Morin Square area. This is really critical. As we know, we've seen lots of flooding lately, and work that can be done. And this funding will, my understanding is, will go towards design work. But the work that can be done to mitigate future flooding is really critical right now. And I'd just like to support it, and I hope you pass it.
Thank you.
Nicholas Erickson, Commissioner of Public Works for the City of Fitchburg. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. I'm speaking actually to all three of the orders underneath the finance section of the agenda. So that's 226-23, 227-23, and 228-23. First and foremost is the state earmark that Liz Murphy just mentioned, speaking in support of the acceptance of this earmark for expenditure by the city to begin looking at ways to solve the flooding issue in the Morin Square area, and also start looking at ways to improve the traffic patterns down there. It's fairly congested, and it takes a lot of work to begin planning for the concepts to redevelop that area. So this is a good step forward towards achieving the goal of improving flooding and the traffic situation down there. The second grant acceptance that's on the agenda is for a municipal vulnerability preparedness grant award. And this is an application that the City of Fitchburg submitted in partnership with the Nashua River Watershed Association. And essentially what we're looking to do is compile a watershed scale evaluation of sites that are suitable for the implementation of green infrastructure and nature-based solutions. So Fitchburg is one of several municipalities involved in this grant effort, along with Pepperell, Groton, and Ashburn, Hammond, Leominster. Thanks, Ralph. So I am in favor of accepting this grant and approving the expenditure of funds for the purpose of said grant. It'll further the city's steps towards implementing green infrastructure throughout the city, and that helps with climate change and flooding and other issues associated with that. And the third and final grant acceptance on the agenda tonight is for the design of nature-based solutions to be incorporated into the next phase of the city's combined sewer separation work in the downtown area. So we undertook a similar grant during the phase that's under construction right now, as you see on Main Street along the western end. So what this will allow us to do is design and construct nature-based solutions within that combined sewer separation area downtown. That'll help address flooding and offset some of the impacts of climate change. Thank you. That's
Thank
my
you
2
very
minutes.
much.
Hello, I'm Ralph Baker, Fitchburg, and I'm here speaking on behalf of both myself as a resident and also the Nashua River Watershed Association, on whose board I serve as vice president. And I'm speaking on Order 22723 that Commissioner Erickson just referred to. It's the largest of the 3 grants that he mentioned. But it's a particularly important one because it involves 5 municipalities, and Fitchburg's the lead applicant. All 5 are representative of different kinds of communities within our watershed that may suffer from climate change in various ways, flooding, as we just saw, and also drought, which is what we had last year, might have next year, who knows. But we are going to help the community voice their interests in various kinds of nature-based solutions that they're interested in, and we'll listen and help to guide them in setting the stage for going after subsequent funding for design and implementation of those nature-based solutions. They can take many forms. It could be preserving forests or putting in catchment basins to prevent runoff from going directly into the river, things like that. So since I don't have very much time, I wanted to add that, Fitchburg and NRWA have close relationship, which is why I think Fitchburg's a perfect applicant. And the large amount of match that goes along with this grant will, in large part, be met through the volunteer efforts that NRWA and other community partners will be contributing. So I don't think it'll be a huge imposition to the city to meet the match for this grant. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further public comment at this time? All right, proceeding to our announcements. On Wednesday, October 18th, the City of Fitchburg will host a delegation of young women from Armenia who are elected officials and are here to learn about the duties of their counterparts in cities and towns in New England. This visit is sponsored by the Cambridge...
Yerevan. Yerevan.
Thank you. Yerevan Sister City Association. If you are interested, contact Sally Cragen, 978-320-1335. The British American Club has its annual chicken barbecue Sunday, October 15th from 1 to 4 p.m. Meal includes a half chicken, baked potato, corn on the cob, and coleslaw. It's open to the public, $15 a meal, and tickets are on sale now at the club, 1 Simons Road in Fitchburg. The next meeting of the Widowed Helping Widowed Support Group will take place on Thursday, October 5th from 4 until 5:30 p.m. in room 203 at the Fitchburg State University Recreation Center, 130 North Street. Kelly Lynn and Bernie Schultz will co-facilitate the meeting. The Fitchburg municipal election is November 7th, 2023. Polls will be open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. The last day to register to vote for that election is Saturday, October 28th from 8:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. at City Hall. The last day to request a no-excuse mail-in ballot is Tuesday, October 31st by 5 p.m. The last day for an absentee ballot, which is different, is November 6th at 12 p.m. In-person early voting is scheduled from Saturday, October 28th, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., and Monday, October 30th through Friday, November 3rd, 8:30 to 4:30 p.m. The location for that is not yet finalized, but it will be downtown. All right. Since Councillor Boschman is remote this evening, he has asked me to deliver the report of the Committee on Records, which is that the records for the preceding period appear to be in order. Motion to approve. I have a motion and second. If there is no objection, it is approved. Report of the Appointments Committee. Councillor Kucher. Is this? Oh, this is a new letter. Okay. I'm sorry. No, so there is no report of the Appointments Committee. There is, however, a reappointment letter from the mayor for Michelle Marino as Veteran Service Commissioner, term to expire October 1st, 2026, which will stand referred to the Appointments Committee. And at this time, Chief Suarez of the Fire Department is with us to inform us of a necessary organizational change in his department that he would like our support for. Chief?
Thank you, Mr. President. And thank you very much, councilors, for the opportunity to present this change to you. It's a change that I think is important to remedy some important concerns that I have, along with what I believe is a relatively simple solution to these issues. So what I'm recommending is that we change one day captain's position into a deputy's position. This is not an added position, so currently we are at 81 firefighters. If this change takes place, we will remain at 81 firefighters, so there is no addition to our staffing. The current position will continue to perform his current duties, such as being in charge of department training, and will also continue to be the FEMA director. However, this position will also train and learn all of the fire chief's responsibilities and duties, and I'll speak a little bit more on this later. So in short, this position will be a deputy, but assistant to the fire chief. There are three major reasons why I feel this change needs to be made. One is continuity of operations, second, chain of command, and the transitioning of a deputy chief into the role of fire chief when he or she is newly appointed to that fire chief position. Continuity of operations is a predetermined delegation of authority that takes effect when normal channels of authority have been disrupted. What this simply states is we need to know who is second in command of the Fitchburg Fire Department, which we really don't currently have. Continuity of operations is used in the business world, it's used in the military, it's used within all government agencies at all levels because of its importance. In regards to the fire department, it will ensure that we know exactly who is in charge in case the fire chief cannot delegate for any reason, such as sudden health emergency, on scene at some other major incident, or just simply cannot be reached for some unforeseen reason. Currently, as I said, we don't have a dedicated deputy in this role, so there's no official dedicated second person in command of the Fitchburg Fire Department. That's not to say that there isn't always a second person in command. It just can change from week to week and sometimes even day to day. And the reason behind this is because each of the 4 deputies that we currently have are responsible for their own frontline shifts about approximately 48 hours a week. So the current deputies just don't have the latitude or the time to dedicate the full-time focus to the position that this position needs. The change from a captain to a deputy will help bridge this gap. Secondly, this position will resolve another issue that we are currently facing, which is following the proper chain of command. I'd like to state now that the first 2 issues, continuity of operations and chain of command, are mandated by the federal government for any department such as the Fitchburg Fire Department that receives federal grants. Chain of command is the orderly line of authority within the ranks of the department, meaning that orders are given from the top down. Currently, our FEMA director is a captain, which creates a serious issue in improper chain of command, especially when the FEMA director is directing storm issues and is giving directions to higher-ranking deputies during these operations. The change that I'm proposing will create a more streamlined and proper chain of command, especially during these major incidents such as FEMA weather operations, which seem to only be increasing in intensity and frequency. Also, if this issue is not resolved, this could be a liability for the department and the city if anyone were ever to be injured or worse during one of these incidents. The reason being that federal agencies like NIOSH or OSHA will perform an investigation if there's a serious accident and will find improper chain of command as a potential reason for the accident. Lastly, we don't have a smooth transition when a new fire chief is appointed. The deputy that I'm proposing would also play a pivotal piece in transitioning a newly appointed fire chief to his or her new role, either by transitioning into that chief's position themselves or by helping the new appointee into his or her new position as fire chief. As assistant fire chief will have knowledge and experience in that role for years as he takes it. And this is because I mentioned the deputies will be trained in all of the fire chief's roles and responsibilities. Some of these responsibilities will be yearly budgets, how to bring agendas to the council, hiring of personnel through civil service, creating, implementing, and enforcing policy, commanding emergency incidents, payroll and billing, and applying for federal and state grants, just to name a few. So this deputy position would play a critical role for the city and the department in creating seamless transition from one chief to the next when the next chief is appointed and when that time comes. Now, a realistic concern that we all have is how much is this position going to cost and how is it going to be paid for? So the total cost is approximately $18,547 for this position. That's a salary difference of $19,396, an educational difference of $1,939, but we have to minus about $4,000 in yearly overtime. The reason being is that captains now receive overtime pay. This deputy position, this deputy would not be able to receive overtime. They would get comp time instead. So they would be using time off to pay for the extra work that they did. For an example, on the storm that we had on July 16th, Captain Haverty responded on that Sunday. He worked and he was able to collect overtime because he was a captain. If he was a deputy at that time, he would only collect comp time. That comp time would be taken, and we would never backfill that comp time, that position, so there is no backdoor cost to this. So it's a savings of about $4,000. When you add that all together, it equates to about a cost of $18,547. Now, how will this position be paid? It will be paid through my current budget, FY24. I do have that extra money in the fire personnel budget, so there would be no need to appropriate the money from the general fund or any free cash. So in summary, I'm proposing to change a single captain's position into a deputy's position. Staffing will remain at 81. This position will will remedy three serious concerns such as continuity of operations, chain of command, and the transitioning of a newly appointed fire chief into his or her new position in the future. It will cost an additional $18,547 for the position, but this money does not need to be appropriated as it is currently available in my fire personnel budget. Thank you all once again for your attention, and I'm happy to answer any questions or concerns that anyone might have.
Councillor Green.
My only question is, are there currently 4 captains right now?
There are currently 7 captains.
7 captains. So would it be possible that any of those 7 captains now could apply for and start training for, I don't want to say this new position, but this new position?
So yes, so currently we have a captain in that position. What we would have to do is call for a promotional exam for the deputy's position. In the meantime to that, the captain that's in that position will probably stay until the exam is called, which would be in the spring. They would take the examination, their rankings would come out, and the top score would probably take that position.
So this is contingency, correct? This is a contingency plan so that ideally you would be promoting from the inside and up, correct?
Correct.
So captains would then potentially become new chiefs.
Correct. So we will go from 4 deputies and 7 captains to 5 deputies and 6 captains. So one of the captains will be a deputy.
And would that be a position that they've asked to be nominated for or have an interest in, or how does that
because
pooling
this is
work?
a deputy's position, it's non-union, So it would go by score, but then I would give an interview to the 5 deputies that we have and see who would like the position and what their agenda is. I would like to put somebody in that position that would like to, at some point, possibly become chief of the department, or at the very least stay there for a long period of time. So if somebody is promoted to chief, they have the knowledge and know-how of all the roles and responsibilities of that chief, and they can assist them the whole time, as opposed to getting, 2 weeks training and, being thrown into that role.
Thank you.
Councillor Squalia?
Thank you. So with the new proposal, we'll have 5 deputies and 6 captains, or will be 5 deputy chief and 7 captains?
5 deputies and 6 captains.
So we are essentially just changing from 7 captains to 5 deputy chief.
Correct.
Right. So
Yeah, we'll remain at 81.
we'll still have 11 in those 2 positions combined.
Correct.
Now, my main concern is the fairness and equity in the choosing of the next fire chief, because in essence, we are taking the current captain, the FEMA position, and putting him into this new deputy position, pending the next round of tests.
Mm-hmm.
That's correct?
So this really wouldn't affect the chief's position per se. This position could help somebody that wants to become chief by giving them the experience of the chief's position. If there's going to be a new chief, so there's an exam coming now in November for the chief's position.
For the fire chief?
Everyone that takes that exam will be given a rank. The highest rank would potentially get the job because he had scored the highest score, just as it happened last time. So in the future, it's probably going to happen the same way. I'm assuming that maybe the person that's in this role would want that position if nobody else does, or at the very least, they're there at least to help transition that new appointee with the roles and responsibilities of the chief's office.
Right, so I'm kind of thinking in a political way, I guess. If you have this person who is moving into this deputy chief role, how do we ensure that anyone else any other captains or potentially lieutenants want to take that test, that might want to take that test, but might be encouraged to not, so that they don't take this position from this deputy chief who's been serving in this role? You understand what I'm saying?
I think so.
There's a minimum number of people that must sign up for a test per the civil service.
Correct. So the way that it works is, if this position were to come into play, we can't promote a captain until either someone retires or leaves the fire department. So there's no way to promote that person that's in that lower rank. Right now we can if we create this position, because it's going to go from a captain to a deputies. Once it's filled, there'll have to be someone retiring to promote another captain. So basically all they'd have to do is they have to take the exam once it's called for, and again, the highest score gets preference.
Right. So is there a mechanism in place such that we can ensure that anyone who wants to take the test signs up for the test and isn't encouraged to maybe not show up for the test?
That's a civil service question.
Right.
So they would be the ones that, and if I could get that answer for you, but I'm not 100% sure on the laws of the civil service in that regard, but I can find that out for you.
Okay. Thank you.
Councillor Fleming?
Yeah, I just have my questions quick. Right now, you're saying that the money's going to be coming from the fire personnel budget. In the future, will it always be coming for that budget, or will you have to come to us to take money from the general fund to fund that position?
Well, the long-term plan, Councilor, is that we negotiated a new contract with MedStar Ambulance, and we're hoping, if the numbers look good, look right, in 3 years we'll be taking over BLS billing, and that'll be extra revenue that the city will be collecting. So that's the future goal.
Thank you.
Councillor Cruz?
Thank you, Mr. President. Most of it's been kind of answered already, but just to reiterate, typically when someone gets promoted, everybody will know, the lieutenant moves to captain and so forth, everybody moves up. In this case, no further firefighters will be moving up. It's just a swap of deputy?
That'll be just one person with this change.
Okay.
But it doesn't affect anybody below that, and it won't affect any other potential promotions because it's still an open position. So whether it's a captain or a deputy, it's still someone will be promoted.
Okay, and will all 5 of the potential deputies be able to go after this, this role here?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. I yield the floor.
Thank you. Councillor Brochman.
Muted, Councillor.
Councillor Brochman, you're muted.
Oh, sorry. My question to the chief is that how does the union feel about taking away a captain's position, number one? And if this role is so important as you claim to be, why isn't other communities doing it? Like our sister city and that.
Well, for that second question, I just spoke to Chief Sidlow on Saturday, and he stated that Deputy Craig Long is his second in command, so he is doing that. I know that Deputy Bean in Westminster is their second in command, so I'm not really sure where you're getting your information from. And what was your first question?
How does the union feel about losing the captain's position?
The union is in favor of it only because that promotion will still be there, and instead of a captain, it's going up to a deputy.
Let me ask you another question.
Sure.
All these years, under the Chief Roy and other people that were in the positions never had one, and how did they run so efficient? And all of a sudden now, the way I understand it, you say we can run better.
Well, once again, Councilor, we did have a second in command. It was Fred Buck when I got on. Then it went to Joe Cascio. And then the last was Mike Spano in 2008 before we had the economic downturn. After that, they eliminated those positions and made them captain's positions. Chief Roy tried to give those positions, those second in command, to other firefighters that were on duty, and he had the same issues that we're having now. It's never the same person. It has to change day to day, which just doesn't fit the role of continuity of operation.
All right, I yield the floor.
Thank you. Councillor Di Natale.
I'm glad you mentioned that, Chief. The fiscal year 2009 budget that I was a part of, that was one of the issues going in that we had to do because everybody was getting slashed to the bone. So this is not something, I was hoping to get that out tonight, that this is not new. This is a redux of 15 years ago.
Correct.
$17,000 is a lot of money to a lot of people, and I will get in trouble for saying this, but it's peanuts in comparison to everything else throughout the city. We got to think big. 17,000 you can absorb. You don't need free cash. You don't even need our approval for this. This is a communication. I mean, the only one I guess you need approval is the one sitting over there. But this isn't going to come before us for an appropriation. It's absorbed. There has always been an issue in continuity and chain of command. When you explain it to me, you've got 4 different people at different points of the week who may be out on calls. Not maybe, they will be out on calls. And if you're not there, no one's running the ship.
That's correct, Councilor.
So this makes sense from an organizational perspective, and it's also a continuous improvement, okay? Less confusion makes things easier to manage. And, you know, there's been a lot of questions about how this would impact the chief's position. I think that's irrelevant for right now, because as history has shown us, sounding wonderful in an interview and scoring the highest on the test qualifies you to run the city, and inexperience doesn't mean anything. So you said the highest scorer gets preference. Are you talking the deputy to be a deputy chief? Because the chief, you don't need the highest score to get picked, correct?
When the deputy takes the exam, when we have it in the fall, the highest score will more than likely be the one that's promoted and would be able to...
To this position you want to create. It's not the chief's position. I want to make sure that that's clear. Okay, because it sounded like it was said earlier that if one of these deputies goes for the chief's position and they get the highest score, they get the job. Is that true? That's not true, right?
That I don't know.
Well, I do know, but
I would say that this position would not influence
right.
Who would be promoted to chief.
Right. I'm all set with this. There's no financial impact to the city in the sense that anything's got to be robbed to pay for this. It makes organizational sense. It's long overdue since it's been on hold for 15 years. And, you know, you've already answered the question about what Westminster does and, you know, the city that most of us would love to emulate because they're so wonderful. And the police department has a second in command. Used to be a deputy chief, and then because of the 2008 economic catastrophe, we got rid of it and added a captain instead, or an additional captain until we did an organizational restructure. So I know Captain Giannini is the second in command when Chief Martineau is unavailable or out of town. You don't have that. You have 4 second in commands technically, but they're on the line with the other, with the rest of the crews when there's calls. They're not sitting in an office.
Exactly.
Yeah. So there needs to be some order in the event you're not there.
Yeah.
Or you can't be there. And I think
that role's
this
got to
makes
be
perfect
permanently
sense.
filled. So as you said, it does. We know who's there. If the mayor or any of the councilors need to reach somebody at the fire department, you know, I would hope that they would call me as a provisional chief first. If for whatever reason they couldn't, who would you call next? A lot of them say it's the on-shift deputy. Well, my question then is, who is that? I know who it is because I have to follow this work schedule. I look at the rosters every day. Some days that deputy might even have the day off, and now you have a captain working out of grade, and that captain would not be able to make the decisions that a deputy would. So there's just no continuity of operation.
And
right
lastly, too, from a practical standpoint, if you weren't to do this, and let's say a captain filled this role as a captain, that probably wouldn't make a lot of sense that a captain is telling deputy chiefs what to do.
Correct.
So you're kind of hamstrung in the sense you got to bump it up.
Yes, that's a chain of command issue. And we've had that in the past, especially with this FEMA director's position just becoming more involved in what we do today, going to more classes, working with MEMA, working with FEMA. His responsibility is getting larger and larger. And for a captain to be telling a deputy what to do is just an improper change of command, and that can get us into trouble.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Cragen.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Thank you for the update, Chief. My question really has to do with, again, the increased involvement with FEMA and MEMA that our city has because of these transitional weather situations. And I have no difficulty supporting this proposal because it makes sense organizationally, but it also makes sense from what the Fitchburg Fire Department is asked to do. I did want to ask, given that today Haywood Hospital has declared bankruptcy and the Labor and Delivery Department has closed at Leominster Hospital, I'm thinking that your ambulance service is going to be more on call, perhaps than hitherto, and if you had any comments about that as regards this position and making sure that the services are able to be completed as needed.
Yeah, we are concerned about it. We're assured by Leominster Hospital that the staffing that they have in the ER can mitigate any calls that we bring into them. But our concern is that if we have to transport to, just say, a UMass in Worcester, that it's going to delay our ambulance returning back into the city, which then would limit the ambulance itself being dedicated in the city to take another call. So we do have some concerns. We're assured, or at least given the information, that things won't change much, but that's something that we're going to have to just see how it works out. We're definitely keeping a close eye on it.
Thank you. And obviously having someone in the number 2 position would facilitate finding solutions and workarounds and addressing these.
Most definitely. Yeah. Most definitely.
Thanks. Yield the floor.
Thank you. Vice President Van Hazinga.
Thank you, Mr. President. So I think this position makes sense for the simple fact that any of us can walk out this door and try to cross the street and get hit by a bread truck. And we have to have a clear order of succession, especially when it comes to public safety. So I think this makes sense to have a continuity of leadership within the department and a redundancy. And I assume that also, you love your job, but you like to go on vacation every now and then too, I'm sure. So will this be structured so that when you are out of the area and unable to respond in times of emergency, you would have the deputy chief local and able to respond and run the ship in your absence?
No, thank you, Mr. Vice President. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
All right, I'll second all of that and say this does make a ton of sense, particularly from the continuity of operations standpoint. And last month, I got a lot of questions about, why did I wind up being mayor for a week and a half? No one picked me for it. Well, it's because we needed continuity of government, and so our charter provides that there's a specific designated person who steps in if the mayor ever has to step out. We don't have an election for it because that would be slow and inefficient, just like we don't want to have to appoint an interim chief if the chief is out for some reason temporarily. No offense to the interim chief position, of course, but you know what I mean. If you had a heart attack or something, we wouldn't want to have to scramble and figure out who's going to be chief now.
Exactly.
And having that in place ahead of time makes sure that everyone knows, both the public and in the fire department, if there's something going on and someone tries to call Chief Suarez and the call's just not going through, okay, here's my next number. Instead of call around, okay, does anyone know who's on shift right now? I think this is, especially at the price tag we're talking about, this is a bargain. And it's something that, frankly, even outside of those areas is probably very much needed. I know there's an awful lot of work that goes into running the department, and having someone dedicated to help with that, to sort of parcel out some of the burdens, I think would be an advantage to anyone sitting in the chief's office. So I think this is great. Thank you for updating us on this. And to the extent that anything becomes necessary for the council to vote on in the future, I'll keep an eye out for it, and I hope that we'll all support it.
Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you very, very much. Have a good night. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Councillor Van Hazinga's report from the Economic Development Committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. On September 21st, the Economic Development Committee met to hear an update on the city's progress in implementing the Economic Development Strategic Plan enacted in 2018. Our Economic Development Director, Ms. Bohart, provided an update on the timeline of the strategic plan, addressed the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic, discussed each of the 8 identified sub-goals, and highlighted progress accomplished and work remaining to do on many of the 183 action items within the sub-goals. Ms. Bohart recommended the implementation of the strategic plan be continued for another 1 to 2 years to reflect the general pause in activity that occurred during the height of the pandemic. She then touched on some new issues to consider in the future, such as changing demographics, the cannabis industry, and e-commerce. And she emphasized the importance of tourism to Fitchburg, the ongoing growth of the city as a dining destination, and listed recently completed projects in the city, projects underway, and projects on the horizon. And I will note the presentation that Ms. Bohart gave is available on the city's website, and a recording of the meeting is also available from FATV. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilors?
Move to accept the report.
Second.
I have a motion and second to accept the report. Hearing no objection, it is accepted. I have a request for suspension of the rules on the 3 orders 226, 227, and 228-23 that would otherwise be slated to go to finance.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and second. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
President Zarella.
Yes.
Councillor Boschman.
Yeah, yes.
Councillor Kuchar.
Yes.
Councillor Cragan. Counselor Cruz?
Yes.
Counselor Di Natale?
Yes.
Counselor Fleming?
Yes.
Counselor Green?
Yes.
Counselor Schultz?
Yes.
Counselor Squalia?
Aye.
Counselor Van Hazinga?
Yes.
Counselor Cragan?
Yes.
Passes by 11 members.
Thank you
Mr.
very much.
President,
Yes, I see your hand, Counselor.
I have a question.
And I see yours as well. Hang on a moment. We haven't even gotten the item in front of us yet. So the first item then taken up under suspension is 22623, an order that the City of Fitchburg hereby approves the expenditure of funds from the Massachusetts Department of Transportation 2022 Economic Development Bill earmark in the approximate amount of $125,000 for the purpose of said grant, which is to establish redevelopment strategies to improve the roadway, flooding concerns, underground infrastructure, and user safety, and to promote private economic development surrounding Morin Square. Councillor Boschman, on this item?
I guess I'd have to be on this item. I wanted to wait and have it go to the finance, but it's all right. I'll talk now. On the first question, 22623, my question for the commissioner is that when he talks about Morin Square, is he talking about from North Street down to Summer Street, the corner at the lights?
Councilor, yes. We're talking about North Street to the intersection of Lunenburg and Summer Streets. Just a reminder that this is a very conceptual discussion that we're having. So there's no set design or anything like that right now. But what we're proposing is to accept these grant funds or earmark funds to be able to start the development of these concepts and lay the groundwork for future development.
I understand that, but are you going to be pushing for no turns coming out, no left turns coming out of Dunkin' Donuts and the gas station?
I can't answer that at this point in the process. We haven't even started taking traffic counts or conducting surveys.
Well, according to the traffic counts that I have seen on record, that Massachusetts Regional Planning has that as a bad intersection down that area, and there's a lot of accidents.
Yep, I agree that it's a congested area, and that's the reason why I highly encourage accepting this earmark and using the funds to begin looking at some of these issues down there. There's a lot of work that goes into developing traffic controls for intersections such as this. It's not something that we can just look at and make a decision on tonight. It's something that needs to be taken, an engineering approach needs to be taken. So there needs to be data collection, analysis, evaluation, conceptual designs put together, feedback solicited from the community, and then those designs flushed out into final designs and ultimately construction. So it's a long process, and we're at the very beginning stages of it right now.
All right, I yield the floor.
Thank you. Councillor Squalia.
This is not the one I have a question on. Thank you.
All right. Councillor Van Hazinga.
Thank you, Mr. President. So Councilor Boschman highlighted that the intersection of North and Main has been a problem one in terms of public safety, but also in the Morin Square area, have we had any issues with flooding that we're trying to address recently?
Yes, we have significant issues with flooding in that area. We've had several private properties flood out as a result of some of the rains this summer, and then 2 years ago, similar large rainstorms caused private property flooding. 35 Main Street immediately comes to mind, and then that building that's located right at the corner of Lunenburg Street and Summer Street. I forget the address off the top of my head, but
the Morin Square block?
Yeah. So the answer is yes.
So in this summer has reminded us that Mother Nature can make a mess sometimes, and we have to be prepared for that. So I think if we can take grant funds to do some planning to address this better and make sure we're prepared for the next big event in this area, I think that's a great thing to do. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Kuchar.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Personally, I'm glad to see this, the start of this project. I take that area almost daily, bringing my child to school, and on a busy weekday morning, it could be a free-for-all down there. So I'm glad to see the start of the project of being able to establish, to improve the roadways and establish user safety as well, because it can get pretty hairy down there. I yield the floor.
Thank you. Councillor Gianatali.
Commissioner, the good news about this, as I see it, and please confirm this, is that if the state's going to give us money for this, is it a foregone conclusion to say that this gets us in for future funding grants?
That is our goal for this. So developing some of these initial concepts helps us develop stronger grant applications for other programs in the future.
Right.
Some of those being MassWorks, et cetera.
But I mean, the fact that the state is giving us the money for the conceptual phase, I guess nothing is etched in stone, but historically, that is a good sign that we will get further state assistance down the road if they're going to give us money for this.
Right. Typically, state agencies like to see buy-in, and if they see other state agencies committing to that buy-in, then they're more likely to award grants and such in the future.
Now, typically, the city is accused of not going for grants that people want. I don't know what that means, but people who think they're smart say it. How did your office, how did this come about? Did the state contact you and say, hey, you want 125 grand, or did we actually go and get it?
This was actually an earmark that was spearheaded by Representative Kushmerek.
How did he know about it?
He knew about it through communication with the Community Development Office and the Department of Public Works.
But we pursued it.
Right.
Right. And I don't think anyone would disagree that this is needed in the city and necessary, but this is one small example of many where grants are gotten for a purpose. They're not, it's not play money, because if this 125 didn't come to us, it'd go to somewhere else. Right. And it's our tax dollars coming back here. So these grants are highly important, especially with these public works ones, because there's multiple phases. This gets us in the pipeline. It's better that our taxpayers don't pay for it out of property taxes. They're paying for it out of state taxes that we should be getting back at every opportunity. So I thank you and your staff and community development for pursuing this, and please keep up the good work in that regard.
Thank you. And one other point I'd like to make, too, is a lot of times grant awards are tied to private development, and the fact that the Harper Furniture Building was recently redeveloped, and along with a lot of the other redevelopment that's happening in that downtown area, positions the city very well to be awarded grants in the future. So spending this money to flush out some of these concepts and kind of get ourselves in a position to apply for these grants is a very good thing.
It's a similar situation as John Fitch, is it not?
It is.
John Fitch, I think as far back as I've been on the council, we've been starting, that process has taken a decade. But it's not our doing, it's just how it works. So this is necessary, no question about it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Fleming.
Yes, I, for one, am thrilled about this. I mean, I've been the councillor now for 6 years in that ward, and countless petitions not able to get things done. I'm absolutely thrilled that we're finally going to be addressing these issues. Thank you.
Thank you.
Motion to approve 22623.
Second.
I have a motion and second to approve 22623. Any objections? Seeing none, it is approved unanimously. 22723, order that the City of Fitchburg hereby approves the expenditure of funds from the Massachusetts Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs Municipal Vulnerability Preparedness Program Action Grant for Nashua River Watershed Natural Solutions in the approximate amount of $403,985, which was awarded in partnership with the Nashua River Watershed Association and 4 other municipalities for the purpose of developing watershed-wide maps and charts to be used to conduct robust public improvement through which nature-based solutions can be, projects can be tailored for each municipality. Commissioner?
So I wanted to illustrate one point, and that is that through the MVP grant program, the state awarded approximately $31 million worth of grant awards to communities throughout Massachusetts. Out of that $31 million, the city was awarded 3 grants. 2 are before you here tonight. This is one of them. The third will be coming before you as soon as we're finished the contracting phase with the EEA. But those grant awards totaled over $1 million just for the city of Fitchburg. So these awards have been given based on the city's past performance with the Municipal Vulnerability Preparedness Grant Program. We've successfully applied for and completed a number of grants. So this is an investment that the EEA is making in the city of Fitchburg. And the fact that we were awarded over $1 million out of only $31 million across the state is pretty impressive. So this particular project is a partnership with the Nashua River Watershed Association to look at the Nashua River watershed as a whole and identify areas where it might be advantageous to implement nature-based solutions. And nature-based solutions are a way of controlling stormwater such that it reduces flooding, provides recharge to the ground, improves water quality, and reduces the urban heat island effect, which is the effect of impervious surfaces causing a rise in temperature. So the Nashua River Watershed Association will serve as the lead on this. We were the lead applicant as the city of Fitchburg, but the Nashua River Watershed Association will be providing the overall project management throughout the course of this grant. Ralph Baker from the NRWA is here with us tonight, and he can speak on behalf of this project as well. But the city and the NRWA have an excellent relationship. We've worked on several projects together in the past, and this collaboration just another example of that. So we're very excited to get started with this grant, and I support accepting this grant for us to use.
Thank you. Councillor Squalia.
Thank you. I very much appreciate the NRWA doing the project management for this grant, very much. And the only question I have, I love the project, is the deadline. Like, what's our timeline? I see reference to a 2-year, classroom visit and NRWA project update. But what is the deadline of this grant?
So it would be June 2025.
June 2025.
Yeah. So it is a 2-year grant. The clock has essentially started ticking with the execution of the contract between the EEA and the city of Fitchburg. So this is kind of the last step in getting things ready to get the project moving.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Councillor Brochman.
Yeah, Mr. Commissioner, my question to you on this grant here would be tied into the MS4 program.
It's tied to the MS4 program to a certain extent, not directly, but because we're looking at the opportunities within the city to site these nature-based solutions, that's looked very favorably upon by the EPA when they're going through all of our different accomplishments related to the MS4 stormwater system throughout the city. So some of the requirements of the MS4 permit that we have require us to look at these things, and we're doing so with the funding provided through this grant. So essentially, we're using the funding from this grant to check off a lot of the boxes that we're required to check off through the EPA MS4 permit that the city operates under.
When you say nature-based, can you explain to me what that is? Because I read the thing and I didn't quite understand what you mean by nature-based.
Sure. So historically, the means of controlling stormwater is to use a catch basin and a piped stormwater conveyance system that gets water as quickly as possible to a receiving water body like a stream or a river or a pond. Over the years, there's been some study and analysis of this that shows that actually results in a degraded health of the receiving water body. And so the latest trend, and it's more than just a trend, but the latest science supports that for the overall health of that receiving water body, the best way to control stormwater runoff is through these nature-based solutions, or green infrastructure is another term that's commonly used. And that's essentially using nature itself as a way to attenuate stormwater flows and improve water quality and stormwater runoff. So a lot of times, rain garden is a good example, and that's used as an example of a nature-based solution. And essentially, you're trying to infiltrate that water into the ground. You're trying to promote the uptake of pollutants through plant vegetation and the like, and that helps the water quality of the receiving water body. It essentially disconnects the impervious area that creates the runoff that funnels to that water body.
So Is it all fairness to say that Cumberland Farms up in Cleveland at the roundabout where they put in all those stones, it goes into the Nashua River, would be a nature base because it goes over stones and that to clear itself out?
There are nature-based elements incorporated into their stormwater design, yes. Every development has its challenges, and one of the challenges with that particular site is the proximity to the river. But that's a relatively recent development, and as part of that development, they went through the process required to address stormwater flows, and they incorporated some best management practices into that design. And those best management practices utilize green infrastructure techniques and a few other things.
And I just want to say hi to Mr. Baker. I haven't seen him in a long time. I yield the floor.
Councillor Cruz.
Thank you, Mr. President. So for this grant, and I kind of looking ahead to the next one, I see the next one, they're both EEA. The next one is for resiliency downtown. And I know the previous grant we talked about, the 226-23, is very much in the early stages. Do we have any idea of kind of what areas in the city of Fitchburg this money is going to go to?
So with this particular grant, it's all within the Nashua River watershed itself. So part of the analysis is actually figuring out which sections of the city are optimal for the installation of these nature-based solutions. So that's one of the things that we'll determine as a result of this grant, but I don't necessarily have the answer for that now. We've got to go through the actual grant scope of work and complete that work to help identify these locations and nail down which sections of the city might be most appropriate.
Okay. So sometimes I fear that we throw a lot of our eggs in our downtown basket, and it looks like the next one is guaranteed to go downtown for downtown resiliency. So I'm just hoping to see this grant get spread out a little more evenly throughout the city, and I hope that the Nashua River watershed throughout the city is cared for, and not just pumping everything downtown.
Yeah, this grant will look at the watershed as a whole and not just exclusively the downtown area. Downtown area for this project will be looked at equally compared to the rest of the city. So there's no preference given to one specific area over the other.
So where it'll be most effective, it sounds like.
Right.
Perfect. I yield the floor. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Green.
Hi, Commissioner. Will this grant affect, or will you be able to utilize any of the work needed for the culverts along some of our country roads that continue to have issue with flooding and stormwater runoff that takes the whole road with it, and then there's all the sand and debris that ends up in the streams? Would this grant money, do you foresee that being able to be spent to utilize that? And then in those culverts, would these rain gardens be an appropriate place to install those?
So as part of this grant, we'll be looking at the watershed holistically and identifying locations where we might be able to install those nature-based solutions to help address some issues with runoff and erosion, et cetera. So some of the areas in the country that you're talking about might be some areas that are identified for that purpose, but until we execute the full scope of work that's outlined in the grant, we won't really know exactly which sections of the city and which areas within the watershed itself are the most ideal for these nature-based solutions. And the reason why I say that is because a lot of times these nature-based solutions depend on what's below the ground, the soil types, depth to bedrock, depth to groundwater, et cetera. So until we have a better understanding of all those things, which is what this grant is going to help us identify, we won't really know where the optimal spot for these are. So it might very well be out there if there's sandy soils and good depth to bedrock and good depth to groundwater and all that. But that's something we hope to identify with this grant scope of work.
All right. And where is the final end point of our watershed? Is it in Bolton, down in the flats?
It actually extends all the way up into New Hampshire and as far south as Leominster, Lancaster area. So it encompasses a really large area. For this particular grant, we're focusing on just the municipalities that we identified as partners. So there's certainly future work to be done in areas outside of just those municipalities to cover the entire watershed for the Nashua River itself.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Kuchar.
Thank you. I was just wondering, will any of this go towards the flooding issue up on Shea Street?
Like I said earlier, it kind of remains to be seen. As part of this, we'll identify areas where it might be suitable to implement this nature-based solution, green infrastructure. Out there, I'm not exactly sure that there's enough city-owned property to do anything else beyond what's there. We've got that really large detention basin that's along Shea Street at the base of the hill there, and that's actually located on Oak Hill Country Club property. So if we were ever to expand that, we would need some cooperation from the golf course. And then we have our entire stormwater system essentially discharges to Shea Brook, which is located right at the end of Shea Street Extension, right next to Mr. Martin's property there, actually on Mr. Martin's property. So one of the outstanding maintenance issues that we have is trying to figure out a way to dredge that outlet channel to continue to allow that stormwater to flow all the way down to Notown Reservoir. But we also have to be mindful that that's tributary to Leominster's drinking water supply in Notown Reservoir. So we've got to be very careful about where those sediments go and what's in those sediments.
Thank you.
Councillor Gianatali.
Is our watershed a principal reason why we have the road conditions that we have?
Our watershed?
Is this synonymous with the road conditions in the sense that we have a ton of water? Do we not have areas that this may affect that are underlying groundwater issues that we can't really do much about? It's just a freak of nature?
I think
I'm thinking of like Pearl Hill Road, for example. I mean, that road needs massive reconstructive surgery. But I think if I recall years ago, there is a lot of issues, like just based on the geography. So, and a lot of it is water-based. So is that similar to what this is trying to possibly address, something like that?
I think it's a combination of the amount of water, the topography in the city, and the soils upon which roads were constructed years ago without the installation of proper drainage to control the groundwater where the roads are, et cetera. If there's water in a road subbase, it leads to freezing, which leads to expansion and contraction, and that's what heaves the roads and all that. So I think that's one of the issues, is just the method of construction of the roads historically in the city doesn't lend itself very well to durability. So I think this grant is not necessarily focused on identifying, ways to fix the roads. I think those are kind of two separate issues.
No, I wasn't implying that. What I was implying is a lot of the issues that we've heard over the years with regards to our infrastructure is water-based.
It is.
And a lot of those issues, I've been told, there's really not much we can do about it. We're just a victim to where we are because of all the groundwater, the reservoirs, the streams. And so I just didn't know if that had anything to do with this per se. I wasn't looking to see if we're going to pave a road or two. I'm just saying,
I wish we could,
is that interlocked with this at all, or is that a separate?
I think it's a slightly separate issue.
Okay.
I think the topography in Fitchburg has a lot to do with the condition of the roads and the constant washouts and erosion that we deal with, and then the soil conditions underneath the roadways. Lacking drainage. The water just sits there, causes issues with heaving in the wintertime. Breaks up the roadways.
And that's just because of how it was constructed 100 years ago? And
yeah, it's just a combination of how it was constructed originally and just kind of how the landscape of Fitchburg is.
Yep. Thank you.
Any further questions or comments on 22723?
Move to approve 22723.
Second.
Motion and second. Is there any objection? Hearing none, it is approved. 22823, in order that the City of Fitchburg hereby approves the expenditure of funds from the Massachusetts Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs Municipal Vulnerability Preparedness Program Action Grant for Generating Resiliency Downtown in the approximate amount of $293,800 for the purpose of developing nature-based solutions to address stormwater issues and the urban heat island effect within the area of the city's next combined sewer separation project. Commissioner?
So this is actually the second grant award of a similar scope. We were awarded a similar grant last year to design nature-based solutions for incorporation into the combined sewer separation project that's under construction right now on the western end of Main Street. So this is essentially phase 2 of that work. So this will allow us to take a look at the combined sewer separation area that's in design right now for the downtown and north of downtown area, and look for opportunities to implement some of these nature-based solutions, which will help us address water quality issues, water quantity issues, and ideally lead to less flooding within that combined sewer separation area, improves the water quality going to the Nashua River, and a whole host of other environmental benefits. The key different aspect of this grant versus the one that was completed last year is that this also includes some monitoring and analysis at the end of the grant timeline. So after we finish the design of these nature-based solutions, it also includes time for DPW staff to go out and observe the function of these nature-based solutions that are being constructed right now and figure out how well they're performing, design tweaks that might need to be made, how many man-hours it's going to take to maintain these things in the future, and help us get a handle on how to make these things a long-term sustainable option for addressing stormwater runoff within the city. So that's the unique differentiation between this grant and the one that was completed last year.
All right, Councillor Van Hazinga?
Thank you, Mr. President. So I'm sure your engineering department has no shortage of projects and work that they need to do. I think these sort of efforts have a real great benefit. Would your department be able to do them without these grant funds to supplement your capacity?
We would not. So right now, me and Ryan Colleen are it for the engineering department. So there's no way we'd be able to undertake any of these grants without the funding that the EEA provides. That provides us the ability to hire consultants to take a look at these things. They have far greater resources than we have in-house, and they have experts that do this stuff all day, every day. So it's a fantastic opportunity for us to get work done that otherwise wouldn't be able to get done.
So these grants act as sort of a force multiplier and allow you to do a much larger scope of work than you would be able to do just in-house. And I really appreciate that this grant effort is really looking forward, and it's not just to complete one project and then move on to the next. It's really to step back and take a look at it and make sure you do it right the next time and even better the next time and better the next time. So I appreciate that long-term planning to make the most of it.
Thank you. Yeah, that's one of my major concerns with this green infrastructure style of stormwater control, is the long-term maintenance and operation of that. That's one of the challenges that I've seen in the past, and that's one of the things that I want to try to address early on in this process before we get all these things built and then have no way to maintain them in the future and have no understanding of what it even takes to maintain them in the future.
I appreciate that foresight. Thank you. Well said.
Thank you. Councillor Squalia?
Thank you. So the Phase 2 project, was that the project that is Blossom Street, Mechanic Street to the Elm Street area?
Yeah, so phase 1 is essentially Ashburnham Hill Road moving east to roughly Prospect Street, but not including Prospect Street. Phase 2 is Prospect Street east roughly to Blossom Street.
All the way to Blossom?
Yeah.
Okay, so this project is basically is similar to the NRWA grant, except it targets really the entire north of Maine.
Essentially, yeah, if you distill it down, yeah.
Okay, and so do we already have some ideas of where we want to implement these nature-based solutions with these urban heat, to reduce this urban heat island effect, or is this specifically for analyzing that area and designing that solution?
We have a general idea of where we may be able to implement these things just based on the city-owned property within that combined sewer separation area. So we've got a good idea of what the right-of-way width is, if the city might own properties here or there that we could take advantage of. So we're kind of limited to staying on city property. We can't use this grant funding to go do something on private property, for example. So that's kind of the starting point. And then what this grant allows us the opportunity to do is go through each of those properties with a fine-tooth comb, identify ones that are more suitable than others, and then move forward with the designs to the point that they can be incorporated into a construction contract.
And is this timeline the same, June 2025?
This is only a one-year grant, so the goal with this grant is to have those designs done by roughly January of 2024. The project, the combined sewer separation project for that next phase is anticipated to go out to bid roughly in March 2024. So the goal is to get it included in that bid package. And then between January and the completion of the grant period, which is June 30th of 2024, that's when we're undertaking that monitoring phase, where we're looking at these things and figuring out what the maintenance requirements are, how well they're working, et cetera.
March to June is the monitoring
Yep.
phase of the grant.
Correct.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Further questions, comments?
Motion to approve.
Second.
22823.
I have a motion and second. Any objections? Hearing none, it is approved. Next, we have,
Thank you,
and thank you
Counselor.
very much, Commissioner. Next, we have 4 side yard sales items. With the permission of the council, I am going to summarize these rather than reading them out in full, and I invite the chair of city property to correct me if I summarize any of them incorrectly. 22923 is a parcel of land at 25 First Street, which will be transferred through the side yard sales program to the owners of 6 Middle Street. Anything to add, Councillor Cragen?
Just that they presented at our side yard sales meeting on September 5th. They needed a place to park in the winter. They plan to fence in the lot and build a garage. They were informed by Treasurer Cervantes, who is here tonight to answer anyone's questions. Thank you very much for staying. That they, of course, would need to be in touch with the building department should they have, construction plans. And we unanimously voted that parcel should go to the Guzmans.
All right, questions or comments from councillors on this parcel?
Motion to accept.
Second.
Motion and second to Councillor Squalia on the motion.
Are we accepting or are we forwarding to city property?
No, these have been to city property and got sent to side yard, and now we're coming from side yard back to council.
Oh, okay, because it's a little confusing on our agenda.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
That's on me. I apologize. Councillor Boschman, I see you've got your hand up.
Yeah, on the motion, I want to ask a question. How long are they going to have to put this into their deed? Because we did this, how long is the period? In 90 days, 100 days?
I'm going to ask Solicitor Pusateri to weigh in on that one because I don't remember what we ended up deciding when we discussed this a couple of years back.
I'm just refreshing myself. So on this, there are 2 properties that you have before you this evening. This is one of the 2, where there won't be an actual merger between this property and the abutting property. And that's because those 2 properties were taking in the, land of low value taking process. Thank you. That process does not clear all liens off of the property like a typical tax foreclosure would. In the past, and in fact, this was the property that we had the challenge with, when a property that has a defect in its title, like, for example, a lien from a prior owner, is merged with an abutting property that infects, if you will, the abutting property's title, and it impacts their people's ability to sell their homes, refinance their homes, or take any other action regarding their title on their home. So after much discussion and debate, and we have come up with a counter, an alternative way of achieving the same effect, which requires the property to be held in common ownership with the abutting property, the Guzman's home, but requires them to execute a right of first refusal on this property, so the city has the right to take it back should they intend to build, for example, this garage and then sell it to their neighbors. So we would maintain that right of first refusal. And if you look in your packets, Council, you'll see that the right of first refusal agreement accompanies this deed. The right of first refusal agreement is also going to be referred to in the deed, and that would be at the bottom of the first page where you'll see the blank. Once the agreement is signed, we'll fill that date in to fill in the blank, and then that will be part of the title. So there won't be any confusion regarding this particular piece of property and the city's interest in it.
Does that answer your question, Councillor?
Oh, I don't know if it does answer my question. I read the thing, and I kind of turned to lawyer talk, and I didn't really understand it. But my question to you is, what happens if they don't build a garage, but they use it for parking, but they don't maintain the property?
So there is a condition, Councillor, in the verbiage that we are approving right here that already says that they must keep it free of garbage and debris and so on. So there are maintenance requirements.
Close your mouth, Paul.
We had a.
Are we in mute, or what's happening?
No. Okay, so that being said, we have a motion and second. Is there any objection? Seeing none, the order is approved. Next, we have 23023, which is a transfer of a small parcel at 46 Mount Vernon to the owner of the abutting property at 44 Mount Vernon, Mr. Figueroa. Anything to add, Councillor Cragen?
No, he was present to discuss his application. 3 of his daughters and a grandson live in the abutting property. He wanted to have this parcel as a yard for them, so that was pretty straightforward, and we unanimously approved Mr. Figueroa to purchase this from the city.
Move to adopt 23023.
Second.
I have a motion and second. Seeing no objections, it is approved. 23123, this is the transfer of a parcel at 46 Allen Place to the owner of the abutting property at 50 Allen Place, Ms. Hiremath. Anything to add, Councillor Cragen?
Just that this, the Hiremath and Rajanala family was present. She has owned the abutting 3-family home for 6 or 7 years. Her plan is to install retaining wall and parking spaces, which will get cars off the street in a congested part of the city. Again, advised by Treasurer Cervantes that the building department needed to be engaged. You can see by what's on the agenda that the stipulations are clear and that we unanimously approved. And again, the purpose of side yard sales, this is non-buildable property, just to remind everyone. This is land of no value, which sounds very poetic to me, but doesn't it? But the bottom line is Fitchburg was such a busy city earlier in the centuries that houses were built in kind of a hodgepodge. So when a house burns, when a house is foreclosed upon, when it collapses, it was on a tiny space and nothing could be built there. So what do? We look at the abutters. Treasurer Cervantes and Assessor Paquette are a fantastic team, and we are moving briskly through these parcels and getting cars off the street and other purposes, lawns for children to play on, etc., is helping make Fitchburg better.
Motion to approve.
Thank you very much. Councillor James Hawley.
Just the counselor to my right said it's of no value, but to the butters, it's got value. So
Lots of
that's
value.
and this goes back on the tax rolls, right? I mean, it'll be factored into there. So it's a win-win. It's a win for the residents in the neighborhood, and it's a win for the city taxpayers because we're taking property off of our hands that's generating nothing, and it's improving the values of these properties that we see through the taxation annually. So,
Yeah.
motion to approve 23123.
Second.
I have a motion and second. Any objections? Hearing none, it is approved. 23223, this is the transfer of a parcel at 35 Davis Street to the abutters at 2 Highland Court, Mr. and Mrs. Sawyer.
Correct.
Counselor?
So the Sawyers have lived in their house since the 70s. This property did once have a house. I went up and looked at it myself. Davis Street at that end is not a legally wide street. It is a cow path in essence, and it is paved and it is impassable in winter. And neighbors showed me photographs of how ice dams build up and how it's basically impassable. I found it impassable in June because of the sand left over from the salting, and just to turn around was very, very difficult. But the Sawyers came and said that they would continue to maintain it. Do bear in mind that this so-called land of no value, which is very valuable to the abutters, often is used as a dumping ground for folks in the neighborhood. And that has been the case with these other properties and this property before us as well. So when I was there, was also told by neighbors that there was a pileated woodpecker who made it one of his stops on his flight path. And there were some large hardwood trees. And otherwise, Mrs. Sawyer had no access to the back of her house if she did not own this. So if she needed any repair work, there was no way of getting that done. So I think that's it.
Motion to approve?
Second.
I have a motion and second. Any objections? Hearing none, it is approved. And next we have an order that whereas the City of Fitchburg and N Number Holdings LLC, a New York limited liability company registered to do business in Massachusetts, I'm going to skip some of the details, have entered into a ground lease to lease the helipad and an area of 7,543.8 square feet pursuant to the terms of the attached ground lease. Now, therefore, it is ordered that the City of Fitchburg shall, through its mayor, Stephen L. DiNatale, approve and authorize the execution and delivery of the ground lease between the city and N Number Holdings, LLC, and to authorize all other acts and documents which will be necessary, helpful, or convenient to effectuate and ensure the completion of the building lease and Fitchburg Municipal Airport ground lease. Do we have anyone speaking on this? Mr. Kettle?
President Mazzarella, City Councillors, thank you for the opportunity to talk on 235-23 concerning N Number Holdings. N Number Holdings have been very, very proactive in what they've been doing with us since we got the Lifelight into the City of Fitchburg. They've had many meetings at the airport. They've even been proactive in arranging a meeting with the Commissioner of the DPW, the Building Commissioner, Utilities, Unitil, etc., to make sure that they've got everything ready to go as soon as possible. Now, this has come about because at the moment, if you've been down to the airport, you'll have seen the 3 RVs that stand to the left-hand side of the admin building when you go down. People are living in those at the moment. They can't live in those in the winter, so the idea is to get the building up next to those RVs on the old area leading up to be adjacent to hangar number 3. The reason for that is because they cannot get water to those RVs in the winter, so everything freezes up, so they have to go out into the hotels. So I'm pleading with you, please, to approve this tonight, and I'm here to answer any questions that you may have.
Councillor Green?
So bravo for your hard work, and love the fact that we certainly now could be a time of crisis with our hospital situation, that we may need Lifelight more than ever now. So I appreciate the collaboration between Fitchburg Airport and this particular company. When they put up the building to house the pilots, that will then become a permanent structure of the Fitchburg Airport, correct?
It will be.
Okay, so how many year lease are we looking to secure with them specifically?
I believe it's a 2020, so in total 40 years. That isn't only good for the airport, it's also very good for the city because the city rents that are going to be charged on that property as well.
All right.
So the original size of the building is 50 by 80, so it was 4,000 square feet. But we've also added the ramp on the front and also an area that's designated for the helicopter only. So that makes up the 7,000 square feet. And that results into the airport of just under $4,000 a year in rent going forwards. And then they've got all the utilities they've got to pay for, and also the rent to the city as well in the taxes.
Will you repeat, only $4,000 a year in rent?
Yes. Remember, it's just a land lease. And what I've got here, as I was requested by Attorney Pusateri to go out to all the other airports, in fact, I did this about a year ago. And as of a year ago, the rents, if I take a big airport that's very close to the city like Hanscom Field, their lease rate at New Bedford is between 28 to 32 cents a square foot. We are at 50 cents a square foot on this one, so almost double what Hanscom Field are charging, and they're prepared to pay that because of the area that it's taking, the proximity between Fitchburg, Leominster, Worcester, and all the surrounding areas going up into Vermont and also New Hampshire.
Is this company, N Number Holdings, are they going to be the property manager of the housing facility?
Yes, they will be, because it is a sublease. The sublease is to Air Methods, which are the people that actually work with UMass on the Life Flight.
Okay, thank you. Looking forward to that.
Councillor Squalia.
Thank you. This proposed building for the pilots and the helipad, was there discussion or on a potential housing of a restaurant, a potential combination of this structure or proximity to an airport restaurant?
On this particular one, no, but the good thing is where the RVs is where the restaurant is going to go in the future. So
you have that plan going?
We absolutely do. Yes, we do. And also all the utilities that are there, they've got gas, they've got the electricity. The sewage can go into the new admin building sewage, which is about 25 feet away. So everything's there for that restaurant to take place.
Fantastic. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councillor Van Hazinga.
Thank you, Mr. President. So just to clarify, so what we're doing here is a ground lease, so that the city will continue to own the land, but will lease it to this operator.
Agreed.
Who can then build the hangar, and they will own the building, and we will continue to own the land.
Agreed.
So the benefit to the city is, first of all, we get the benefit of the service, the life-saving service. We collect annual rent on the land. It sounds like you've done a good job on the rate there. Good work.
Thank you.
And we will also collect property taxes on the building, because the building will be privately owned, not publicly owned.
Yes, sir.
And just to clarify, too, on the living space you mentioned, this is because the Life Flight service will have pilots and crew personnel on call 24 hours a day. So much like firefighters at a firehouse, if it's dark out, they'll sleep, and
yes,
they get woken up if needed, and they go. So they do need some facilities, but this isn't going to be a house that's for sale to the general public.
It is not, no, because as soon as that lease ends, then the accommodation side of it goes away and it becomes a business. So everything in terms of the bedrooms goes away, the walls are taken down, and it gets offered to, unless there's another Life Flight that comes in. But in all honesty, Air Methods own 300 such facilities throughout North America. They have 330 helicopters. Mm-hmm. And they offer a fantastic service to the city, to Leominster, and all the close proximity.
So at the end of the lease term in 20 years, will the city...
20 plus 20.
20. So there is a renewal period of 20?
Yes.
Okay. So, minimum 20, potentially 40 years. Will the airport take possession of the building, or will the lessee remove the building?
The airport will definitely take the building over.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. I'm in support of this.
Thank you. Councillor Squalia.
Thank you. I had another question. The connection of utilities to the property, that's all under the tenant, correct?
It is.
All connections from city pipes?
It is. It is. And just so that everybody knows, because you haven't seen the actual plan, the building looks very, very similar to the new admin building. It's got a sloping roof, just the same. The colour will be next to the two. If you've been down to the airport, Hangar 2 and Hangar 3 have been totally refurbished. You should come down and have a look. Hangars that were going to be thrown away, and us coming to you for a loan of $1.5 to $2 million, are now fixed for the next 20 years. So,
excellent. Councillor Cragen, did I see your hand?
You did? Yep. Thank you. I continue to be dazzled by what is happening at the airport, and I just wanted to say that we had a conversation about these very topics last summer when I came to visit, and then reiterated when the airport had their open house. I guess my question actually is, when is the next open house planned? Because I think all of this is really exciting and great, and the next airport commission meeting too.
You are welcome to come anytime. Just give me a call. We'll fix it into the agenda, my calendar, and let's go. Anytime. You know, we'd love to see you there. We have a fantastic team down at the airport, and we will all look after you. So,
Thank you. And the next airport commission meeting is when?
the 18th of this month.
Okay, thank you.
18th? Yeah, it's the 18th. If the 18th's a Wednesday, it's the 18th.
It is.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Motion to approve?
Second. I have a motion and second to approve 235-23. Any objections? Seeing none, it is approved unanimously.
City councillors, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next, we have 236-23, an order authorizing the city clerk to notify the voters of the municipal election to be held on November 7th.
So moved. Approved.
I have a motion and second. Any objections?
Any questions?
Or questions? Questions are okay too, which just seems pretty straightforward to me, but go ahead, Councillor.
How did the early voting for the preliminary go in the West Meeting Room, and are we likely to do it in the West Meeting Room again?
We're having discussion about that right now. From the November state election, it went up about 50 people, and I think that really is because it was in City Hall foyer. So people, as they were paying their bills, they were in City Hall. They said, "Oh, while I'm here, I'll vote." So we're still in discussion if it's going to be at City Hall here or maybe across the street at one of the in-town buildings.
I would just advocate for a continuity of location.
Yeah, it's the easiest for my world because it's 5 feet away from where I live.
Sounds good. Thank you.
All right, I have a motion. Oh, go right ahead.
Just want to clarify. So you said 50 more people voted early in a primary,
Preliminary.
primary
And they did
versus a statewide
November
general
election.
election.
Correct.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, I was all excited.
Good.
All right. Any further questions or comments? All right. Any objections? Unanimously approved. Next, we have 3 berms and some pothole filling, which will all stand referred to Public Works. And lastly, at the end of our agenda, the mayor had indicated he wanted to give the council an update.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. I simply I'll be brief, I wanted to let everyone know the progress of the project up at the Upper Common where the boulder is. Met with the DPW engineering folks, wastewater division as well, Weston and Sampson and Ken Polito of Polito Contractors. They're on schedule to complete in November. Not sure exactly when in November. A project of this magnitude requires certain adjustments that have to be made on a regular basis. One was made today with some traffic changes. That will be resolved at the end of business tomorrow. Now, there's a certain social media site that has taken this information, twisted it. It's all basically misinformation and hyperbole. And I just wanted the opportunity to speak to the public and let them know that what's happening there is being done by professionals. These aren't people that just woke up one morning and decided to do this project. If you see what they're doing, something of this magnitude is significant. And we're certainly happy that they're continuing to be on track for completion. But we want the public to know that these are professionals doing the work. The mayor doesn't do it. People that are working for the city do it. Thank you.
Thank you. And that concludes our agenda for this evening.
Motion to adjourn.
I have a motion and second to adjourn. Hearing no objection, we are adjourned.